Hi, everyone, and welcome to our monthly series with our Homebrew Club program from 5 Star Chemicals. I'm Erin Hamrick, the marketing manager here. We're really excited for the presentation this month. Just a couple housekeeping things. If you could say hello in the chat to the right, say where you're from, maybe what type of beer you're going to drink today or are drinking right now, or that you wish you were drinking at work. And then also, if you'd like to ask a question, please use the ask a question prompt at the bottom, just so everyone can see that, and we can get to the questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'd like to introduce Andrea Bullard from Hillebrand.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. I'm excited to do this. I was a little nervous at first because, full honesty, we don't do too much with homebrewers, but we have leased kegs to breweries that only need one or two. So we are a massive company, and so we are really going to focus on what we feel is best practices for filling up your kegs, and then of course transportation issues. Those are two of our core competencies. So I do love seeing where everyone is from. I'm currently in Milford, Connecticut right now. I grew up in upstate New York. I've been in this industry for 12 years, which has been pretty exciting. I got my career start at an Anheuser-Busch wholesaler in Oswego, New York, if anyone knows where that is. From there, I moved to Austin, Texas, and worked for Deep Eddy Vodka as their business operations manager, booking deliveries of the vodka, doing state compliance, TTB, all that good stuff. And then from there, I went off to another smaller vodka company based in San Antonio. And then that brought me here to Hillebrand, which I have been here for 4 years. Hey, Lou from Milford. So let me give you a quick overview of what Hillebrand does. We are an international company, and we run basically all of the back end stuff of what breweries and people in the industry do. We are the largest importer of beer, wine, and spirits. We do our keg refurb and rebranding. We run big, huge projects for a lot of the big breweries here. One of the biggest ones we've done recently is with Artisanal Beverage Venture. They brought together several brands and decided they need a universal keg. So we really spearheaded that, no pun intended, on making sure all their kegs kind of look the same. Our Kegspeditor service is what we'll talk about a lot at the end. Basically, that's our reverse logistics program where we go around to 1,600 plus distributors across the country and pick up empty kegs for hundreds of breweries. We have our Keg ID, which is an easy to use tracking software. We have our Keg Fleet, which is a lease-to-own product where we put you into high-end quality kegs for low monthly payments. Our EcoBev is product disposal. So if there's a recall or you've made too much, we will go in and properly dispose of that, file all your TTB, get you the affidavit of destruction, all the back-end dirty work. We can do co-packing. So if you've got holiday variety packs, you can ship us the cases and we can get them all packaged for you. And then supply chain management. So a lot of, we can do flexi tanks, we can do over the road carriers, we can do rail, we can do drayage, we can get you containers to go all over the place. So that's what Hillebrand does, a lot of back end stuff. Some of our biggest customers that we work with, we work internationally as well as domestic. You can see some of the key players here that we partner with, Founders, Bell's, Lagunitas, Bold Rock, Sam Adams, ABI, Sierra Nevada, some here in the States. And then, of course, internationally, we touch every single Guinness keg that comes in and out of the country, which is kind of cool. And then some of the other brands over there, Murphy's, Hoegaarden, all that good stuff. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about making the ultimate tap room. Even if you're just a home brewer and you've got your buddies coming over, you want them to want to try your beer. So why do they want to drink here? Well, obviously they want to try a good beer. They want your space to be cool, feel comfortable, and then consistency. And consistency is a real big selling point, right? Like if you're going to come to my home brew, I want to make sure that you've got the best beer this time and next time. So how do we get that stellar liquid? If you brew it, they will come. The BA has a 6-tier pyramid that they suggest that you follow for coming up with consistency and dealing with food grade products. So obviously, step one is practice for craft manufacturing practices for craft breweries, food safety, process controls, standards, analysis, and then continuous improvement. If anyone wants a link to this pyramid, I'm more than happy to send it after the presentation's over, so you can kind of dive down into each one of those layers a little bit deeper and kind of get a better feel for how they're kind of fleshing that out and what that looks like. Okay, so where it starts, really everything is going to start in the back of the house, and it all starts with your keg. If you're serving from a keg, it's from your keg. So is your keg fully functional? Is it clean? When was the last time it was cleaned? What did you clean it with? What was in the beer? What beer was in that keg last? Was it a sour? Was it like a kombucha beer? Have you deep cleaned it? If so, was it a Pilsner? These are things that you kind of have to keep in mind, because if it's not cleaned correctly, that will tinge what you're putting in there on the next round. Does your keg pour correctly? Are the seals in place? Is the spear cracked? Is it pouring too foamy? Is anything leaking on that keg? Kind of just general maintenance issues that you want to go ahead and make sure that your keg is fully functional. So when you've put all that work into getting your beer in there, that it's going to pour exactly how you need it to pour. Next, processes and standard operation procedures. Depending on how big you are, production software might make sense to you. An easy way to keep track of ingredients and when you're running low and what goes in there for recipes. That will also allow you to correctly price how that beer should be priced in your tap room. You don't want to lose money. You'd like to make a little bit of money when you're, crafting the beer, and you don't want to price people out for, something that's too expensive. So a brewery production software can work. There are some out there that are extremely affordable, built for smaller people. Not everyone needs to jump into that orchestrated beer level of production software. Same thing with keg tracking. We do offer a keg tracking software. It does start as low as $25 a month, just a soft pitch there. You can even use spreadsheets, Google Docs. I have a few breweries that I know of that really don't mind creating their own Google Doc and doing it like that. But definitely make sure that you're tracking your kegs for everything above, from leaking, when it was clean, where has it been, what's going into it next, that kind of thing. And then standards, kind of going back to the BA pyramid, standards, brands, styles, flavor profiles, knowing each beer, what it is going to be when it's poured. Batch numbers, super, super important. I've seen breweries that will, just spray paint a color for what batch it is. Hey, whatever works for you, but definitely do batch numbers. It helps keep your inventory, production schedules. It helps recalls if you ever need one. Just something to keep in mind. Definitely keep in mind batch numbers. And then flavor profiles, aging profiles. Something that I think a lot of breweries, both big and small, really had to come to terms with when COVID hit was aging profiles. Everyone's seen the born on date, the best by. Beer is a perishable item. It's food. So we have to really understand when our beer is going to go bad. You might be able to do an imperial stout that is going to last 180 days. Awesome. You might do something a little lighter that it's only going to be a 45-day beer. And then the integrity of the profile breaks down. So making sure that you know how long your beer is good for. And when you need to pull it off draft or get rid of it or don't serve it to anyone that you really like anymore. So those are just some things that we really feel are important for best of practice in the back of the house to get that beer good. So something else that we can talk about is transportation. And Aaron did mention to me that some of you guys have had questions about transporting your beer, going to festivals, if you're starting to get into some small distribution, you're driving it in your car. So a couple of just best practices that I seem like no-brainers, but we can just go over it, of course, at the end if you have any questions. So some transportation no-nos. Moving your keg when it's hot. I know this might be impossible sometimes, but it's not going to make it a skunky keg because obviously the sunlight can't directly get to the product. But the heat can speed up the chemical breakdown, causing less than desirable flavors to your beer. When I worked for an Anheuser wholesaler in upstate New York, we did not have refrigerated trucks. So this was always a challenge, especially dropping it off at local bars and restaurants, especially if you were the end of the day delivery on Friday and you wanted your beer tapped. It's kind of hard if it's warm, right? Okay. Asking for help. This seems like a no-brainer, but a full half barrel keg is about 160 pounds. So kudos to you if you can lift it. If you can't, ask for help. On the weekends, I would have accounts call me and say, Andrea, we need a half barrel. And I'd say, that's great. You're going to have to meet me at the dock because I cannot lift it. You got to bring someone. So ask for help. It's heavy. Not ideal rolling or dropping kegs. Not great for the integrity of the keg. Kegs, are extremely strong. They're made of stainless steel. We've all seen some truck drivers just roll them off the back or chunk them downstairs in restaurants. If you're doing your own delivery, avoid this at all possible. If at all possible. As you know, kegs are pressurized, so they're kind of like a bomb. You don't want to shake them up and jostle them around. It kind of goes hand in hand with transporting a keg on its side. This can make the keg or the beer pour foam. Also, driving like a maniac. Think about it like you're shaking up a bottle or a can of beer and opening it. It's going to go everywhere. And the last one is not letting the keg chill or settle. Kind of goes with moving it when it's hot and dropping the keg. So it's not ideal to pour foamy beer. You're wasting money. The customer's not going to be happy. What you'd really like to do is let that sit overnight, best case scenario. If not, 1 to 2 hours in the cold box. That will cool the beer down and hopefully help you pour a less foamy product. Okay, so that's kind of on the smaller end, some things that you can do. And even if you're working with a distributor, your distributor should be doing all of those things as well. Some markets do have refrigerated trucks, which is a plus, but if not, those are some alternatives. What we do on the national and international level is we're kind of the middle guy that goes between the brewery and the distributor. So the brewery will brew the beer and then either deliver it to the distributor or the distributor will come pick up the beer depending on, proximity. Now, once those kegs are empty, how does the brewery get them back? If I'm brewing beer in Atlanta and I'm selling it in Milford, Connecticut, how am I going to get those kegs back quickly? Well, that's where KegSpider comes in. We're a reverse logistics solution. So as I mentioned earlier, we will go to every distributor in the network that the brewery has signed on for this program. We will pick up Bell's kegs, we'll pick up Founders kegs, we'll pick up my kegs, we'll pick up, another smaller brewery's kegs. That way you get a full truckload with a full pallet. You're not waiting for your kegs to come back to you on a pallet position in a LTL truck format. We will consolidate them at our DCs, sort through them, repalletize them, get them back on a truck, whether it's LTL with like a consolidated shared load or full truckload if you're producing that much beer, and get that back to you faster. So that speeds up your turn rates, that increases your profit, and that makes you not run out of kegs fast, because I'm sure you guys know kegs are expensive, and there is a bit of a shortage going on right now. So in the nitty gritty, quick and sweet, those are kind of what we feel are best practices, again, for back of house, starting with clean kegs, knowing what's in them, keeping track of your product, and then getting your product out to market. Festivals are one thing. It can be tricky to ship a keg depending on how far away it goes. That's when I think maybe plastic kegs can come in handy in a situation like that, because you can ship it and forget it. I did talk to a brewery yesterday in Texas, and he was using plastic kegs for all of his stuff, and the price of that has just gone through the roof. So he was interested in what, steel would price out to be. So we all know there's supply chain blocks, there's price increases. So any way you can save a buck is the best way to go about doing it. Oh, and I did see earlier, sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place a little bit, but we did have a question about some storage transport keg horror stories. So I did work with a brewery in Ohio one time that got a keg back from a festival, and they had left it outside and it had frozen. So when the keg came back, the integrity of the keg had expanded and the top had popped. It was so bad that I'm not even joking. They had to call in the bomb squad to come in and neutralize this situation because it was under such pressure that could have really just gone off. I had another issue with a brewer out in California who said he couldn't get the beer to foam. He didn't know what was going on, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out an inexperienced brewer had poured the beer with the mash into the keg, clogging up the spear, and it wasn't happening. So not an over storage story, but kind of a keg oopsies right there. And from my personal experience working at the ABI warehouse, there was one night where we had I don't even know how many stacks, but it was, to the ceiling in a warehouse of Busch Light, and a forklift driver ran into it and they all came crashing down. And so that was a huge repack issue that our warehouse had to take on and then dispose of what got ruined. So I hope that this helps you guys out with any of your, startup questions, or if you're a nano brewery, all that stuff. I'm more than happy to take some questions. If you guys have any, you can go ahead and type them over there and that. Say something nice.
Let's see. I'll go ahead and read from our Ask a Question.
Okay.
Let's see. What is the best way to handle a draft account that has held on to untapped beer beyond the brewery's freshness date?
That's a really, really good question. So there are failsafes in place where if you're self-distributing, you can say to the restaurant that you'll pick up out of code beer, but you might not credit them back for the entire purchase. You can also, if you have, like, let's say you're a distributor and you're selling someone else's beer, same difference, but it might be a larger credit. The wholesaler might take on a full credit for that account, so then they can bill it back to the brewery, and then that way that account stays happy. If you're going on an individual level back and forth, that's another reason to track your kegs, to kind of stay up on, okay, does this bar have this on draft yet? Is this tapped? Because they've already paid for it. So that's really up to you of how you want to credit it back. But we all know customer comes first, keep them happy, work with them, especially on a smaller local level, of how you can make it right, and just maybe have a conversation of why that product didn't get put on or why it wasn't moving.
Okay, next one from Trent. Most homebrewers use corny kegs, old pop kegs for home use. Is there a better option? Oh, sorry, it just went up. Is there a better option available for home kegging than corny kegs?
It really depends. You could get a 6-barrel and give that a go. I do know you're right, a lot of homebrewers do use those corny kegs because it is so easy. I still see them out in larger accounts too. They use them for, again, easy to clean, all that good stuff. So it just depends on how you're able to fill it. If you can take the spear out and you're comfortable with that, then I would say definitely try to go for, something smaller, like a 1/4 barrel, 6-barrel. Some places are even selling the little 5-liter kegs. That might be another suggestion for the not doing a corny keg.
Okay, and then it looked like someone, do you have a preference or any suggestion with ball lock versus pin lock?
That I am not. I don't have an opinion on that, Logan. I'm sorry.
All right. Are there any other questions? I had a question. What is the best practice for flagging a keg if so it's not used until maintenance is performed? Like, are there certain ways that you would suggest flagging kegs other than spray painting, like you said earlier?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the kegs now are coming with QR codes, data etched on the top, or there are places where you can buy QR codes. So it's got like a barcode on it. You don't necessarily have to scan it with your phone. But if you can afford a simple tracking software, there are ways to scan that code to flag it for maintenance. So when it comes back to you or you go to fill it and you scan it, you'll get that warning flag. If a tracking software is not for you, I would come up with some type of system where the kegs are numbered and there's a spreadsheet or a form or something that you can have handy where you can flag what needs to happen to that keg before you can go ahead and put beer into it, just so you're not putting the beer in and then realizing like, oh, that seal leaks or that spirit is too short or it's jammed up or, it's not working.
And then another quick question. When you were talking about just using Google Docs or some sort of template to track your kegs, what sort of information should be used on that, especially for a home brewer? Because if I have a couple kegs going and, I want to make sure that everything's fresh, what information am I documenting?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, size is definitely something you should be documenting. Batch numbers of what beer is going in there, brew date, and aging analysis. I would put in, when it went in the keg, when it needs to not be served anymore, what batch it was, and what brand and what size. Just keep it simple. We don't have to, and you can obviously track as much as you want on that Google spreadsheet, but I would say those are the main ones that you should really focus on to keep your beer quality in check.
All right, looks like we have a couple more questions here. Do you have suggested best products to clean kegs?
It's
So
funny, Erin.
I can
Erin
answer
asked
that
me.
too.
She asked me if I knew anything about cleaning kegs, and unfortunately, I don't. I know that there's hot wash, caustic wash, and cold wash. I don't know I know that there's ways to hand clean kegs. And then I would go ahead and say that Erin can talk to the best products to use for cleaning and sanitizing kegs.
Right. So if you are a professional or if you might have a friend who's a professional, we do sell acid number 6. That's what we suggest for all keg cleaning. It is low foam and it's just best for kegs. If you're not and you're a home brewer, then the good old PBW is what we would highly suggest for cleaning, and then using Star San to then sanitize. If you need to passivate your stainless steel kegs, you can use undiluted Star San as well for that. So, oh, great, Eric. So Eric can attest to using acid number 6. If there's any other questions, then I'm happy to answer more about that cleaning or to find out the answers for you. So we have a couple more questions here. How often should you be opening up a Sinky keg?
I would say so you're saying like a complete checkup of all the Sankey parts. I would say every 3 years I'd run a complete maintenance on all of that. Obviously cleaning the Sankey every single time you change a beer. But if you're just talking about the Sankey parts of it, I would say every 3 years, make sure that everything is in complete working order. And I think Micromatic would back up that statement as well.
All right. What do you suggest for a good keg tracking software?
I'm biased to that. I would say Keg ID, which is the software that we sell. It's extremely user friendly. You just need a smartphone, and it's pretty straightforward, user friendly. You can track aging analysis, quality control, location, deposits, turn rates, all that good stuff. Batch numbers. That I would suggest that one. There are others out there, but I'm gonna recommend my own software.
Okay, next question. How best to recondition, test cornies, especially if you have a lot of different manufacturers, lids, poppets?
That one is a tough one. I'm not completely sure on that. I can put you in touch with, we have people that I work really closely with at Thielman and Blafa Frankie Kegs, which are two of the best keg manufacturers in the world. And I'm more than happy to share their emails and cell phone numbers with you so you can get those questions answered from a direct keg aficionado. I don't want to give anybody any bad advice on that.
All right, let's see. I think we have one more. CIP versus opening a Sinky keg to clean. How clean are they in comparison?
Good question. I would. I would say that the Sinky keg is potentially a little cleaner, just because the parts are, they're manufactured so well, and that the beer flows through them without any leakage or potential of something, getting in when the beer is coming out. So I would say Sankey keg is probably easier to clean.
And do you suggest opening up a Sinky keg? Like, do you think there's any problems with putting it back together for cleaning?
No, I think as long as you know how to do that, that's completely fine. I mean, if you have a keg washer, obviously that's easy. But if you know how to take it apart, it's not rocket science. So I would say that they're pretty easy to clean. Most brewers, huge brewers, small brewers, I have a lot of people that only work with Sankey kegs.
And James, I can follow up with our technical team also to see if we have any data or have had any experience with CIP versus just opening up a Sinky keg, and I can include that with our follow-up email for you to make sure you have the answer for that too, just from our perspective with using chemicals and products on our side. And sorry, Gary, acid number 6 is not available to homebrewers. That's why I said if you have a craft friend or maybe a brewery that you're really friendly with, maybe you can get some acid 6 from them. It is pretty hazardous to ship and everything, so it's not available in smaller sizes for homebrew currently. So let's see. Make sure that we had... I think we have everything there. Thanks, Eric. So Eric says there's less wear and tear with a keg washer. So that's great insight. Thank you so much. One last thing, just before we wrap things up, our next presentation next month is going to be Greg Matthews from Homebrew to Professional Brewer, kind of like tips and tricks, what to expect, and all of that. And then in April, we will have John Palmer joining us again to talk about everything with water. One more. What's your worst horror story of a returned keg? I'm sure this will be interesting.
I mean, I have pulled some old ass kegs out of bars that Amberbach. Do you guys remember Amberbach? I found remember Budweiser made an energy beer a long time ago? I found that in a cooler. But I would say that the worst horror story is the one from the brewery in Ohio that had to call the bomb squad, because I think we forget that kegs, I mean, you can't put them on an airplane because they're pressurized. So the fact that they had to call the bomb squad, and I thought that was pretty terrifying. So that would be
all right. That sounds expensive too.
Yes, kegs aren't cheap.
All right. If there aren't any more questions, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us. I will send out a follow-up email to all the attendees, also with the winner of the 5-gallon torpedo keg that we're going to give away. So thank you for all of you that are tuning in today. You will be entered in that drawing. And we'll send some contact information for Andrea or her team, just in case you have any other questions about their products or about the company. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.